Hello, welcome to our fourth entry into the walkthrough series. We're going to look at recording client payments against your invoices. So of course, once you've been paid, whether it's via transfer or maybe you've been paid in another way like a check or something like that, you're going to need to record that a payment's been received against the invoice in question. Now, I'll go through the simplest way of doing this just so that it makes your lives easier. It will cut down your administration work, but I'll also try and show you how things can potentially go a little bit wrong and the best way to fix them as well. So let's jump straight into it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go to sales and then invoices. From here, you'll see a list of the invoices that you've created alongside their status labels. So as we can see, I've got a couple outstanding and I've got one overdue. Now, when you record the client payment, you've got to make sure that you record it against the relevant one, the right one. Couple of ways that you can easily identify this, of course, the easiest being the amount, okay? But there's a chance that perhaps you do charge the same amount to the same client, so that can be a little bit trickier. You could use the invoice reference numbers. I know that on bank transfers in particular, some people will pay it and then put the invoice number in the reference field, so that's another way. Or the last option you've got is, of course, the issue and the due date as well. So there's a few different ways of identifying which invoice the payment's for. Once you've found the invoice that the money's for, go over to the right and use this options menu here. You'll have a handful to select, view and email and so on, but the important one that you need at this stage is the record client payment option. So I'm going to go ahead and press this. You'll see that actually by doing it this way, it's picked the client for me correctly, it's chosen the currency that I've received it in, the amount received is there. So all I really need to do at this point is set the date that the money's come into my account, payment methods, so how has it come into that account, transfer into business bank account, choose the bank account that it went into. I'll go with current in this occasion. The reference, I guess this is more for yourself. This is just to help you identify if you need further distinguish information about the payment received. You put that in there. A nice little feature as well is that you can send a confirmation email to let the client know that it's been received and the invoice is now settled in full. I'll go ahead and check that box now. And underneath, allocate to invoice. Now, all of this is already filled in for me, okay? So the amount received was 900. The amount allocated to the invoice is there in full at 900. At this stage, the invoice shows as settled, so there's nothing remaining on this invoice. Let's go into a scenario though where actually they've only given me a partial payment for the invoice. What I then need to do is put the exact amount that I have received in this field here. Let's say they paid me 800 instead. You'll notice now that this field changes to say that, well, you can't allocate £900 to the invoice because it's £100 short. So I've got to make sure that whatever amount is in here is also reflected in here, because this is telling the system that I've only received £800 and I'm only allocating £800 against the invoice. Now, when I press save, using this button here, you'll get confirmation that the client payment has been created, but you'll see now that actually the invoice still has an outstanding label, still says that there's an amount outstanding, but it does show me that I've received one payment of £800, okay? Let's say that I call them and I say, hey, you've made a mistake, you've given me 8 rather than 9. And they go, okay, no worries, we'll quickly transfer that to you now. What you then need to do is the same process as before. Find the invoice, go back to options, do record client payment again, put the date in, same as before, choose the account. Now this time, the amount received is only for the amount that's outstanding. So £100, £100, I can now press save. It'll ask me now that the invoice is paid in full, who I want to invoice that confirmation note to, you can email or you can skip it. Let's go ahead and email it. And there you go. Email sent successfully, client payment created. Now we can see that that label has changed to paid. So this shows that this invoice is done, it settles, okay? I've got a total amount of 9. I've recorded 2 payments against it in order for it to reach that paid status, okay? So let's do another one together, but this time we'll just do it straight through. We won't have any complications with being paid partially in that sense. So go back to invoices again. Let's do the overdue one this time. So as we can see, overdue, it's 23 days overdue at this point, and they've finally given me the payment for it. So options, record client payment. Same as before, some of the info is populated again. Choose your payment method, choose the bank account. This time though, I'm going to leave the amount received as the full amount, and you'll see down here, you've got the full amount allocated again. So I'm going to go ahead and press save. Do I want to email that? I won't bother this time. Okay. Again, this now shows as paid. It's worth noting as well that when you record a client payment, it'll automatically set a filter on the client list so that it then only shows you the payments received by that client in particular. So just make sure you can either, like I just did very quickly, go to dashboard and then back again, or of course you can use this to change it to all so that they're all displayed together. That's really it when it comes to client payments. So quite simple. There are some occasions that you need to be on your toes a little bit, as I showed you with the allocated payment situation, you know, if you do receive a partial amount. Now I want to show you what will happen if you don't do it this way. So if you're not going to options on the invoice and recording client payment, what you'll need to do in order to actually get a payment synced to an invoice. So you could go to client payment here, and then in the top right, let me just move myself. I'll go down here. You press new client payment using this button here. Okay, so let's say I'm going to record this for payment method. Let's say I've received 250. Okay, I'm going to have to quickly move myself back over here again. Feel like I'm playing musical chairs with a camera. Okay, now what you've got here at the bottom is the system recognizing that there's an open invoice, that there's an outstanding invoice for this client that you've selected. You can at this stage just allocate the amount to the invoice. So the system's quite clever in recognizing, okay, hold on, you're recording a client payment. You've chosen a client that has an already open or an outstanding invoice. Do I then want to assign this money to that invoice in particular? Yeah, of course. So what I'll do is I'll just put the amount in here instead. Okay. And then I'll go down to save. It takes me back to my full list of clients. But if I then, client payments, sorry, but if I then jump back to invoices, you'll now see that that payment has been allocated to that invoice that it suggested as well. So the easiest way by far is doing the method that I showed you first, but this is just in case you do perhaps record a payment first. I guess another scenario where it could happen is if you are backdating, let's say, and you're running through your accounting records and you're creating all this payment information, but you haven't yet created the invoice. What you'll need to do is, if you've got a long list of client payments but no invoices for them, you'll have to start raising and issuing those invoices and then start allocating the money to the relevant invoices as well. That's it really when it comes to client payments. If there is anything that I haven't covered here, do check out the help center. There's bound to be some materials on there that will help you. I really hope you found this helpful, and as always, see you at the next one.